Alrighty, y'all. Good morning, and welcome to another edition of a United Partners for Human Services workshop. My name is Justin Fitzpatrick, and I serve as the Membership and Communications Coordinator for UPHS. I'm joined by our entire team here, our Executive Director, Amber Artainen, our Director of Strategic Initiatives, LaShawn Gordon, and our Administrative Coordinator, Jamie Lynn Crosby. We are here to offer to you today 4 disciplines of execution. We are joined by Rob Anderson, who is a business outcomes client partner for Franklin Covey, and he will present more ways that this amazing program within Franklin Covey can help you achieve breakthrough results and have more delineation and lining up your goals and strategically planning for your organization in the years to come. So without further ado, I'm going to hand off the microphone to Rob and let him get started with this amazing presentation.
Thank you, Justin, and it's nice to meet you, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm meeting with you all the way from the state of Utah. I used to live in Virginia for many, many years and moved out here a few years ago. So I miss this East Coast, and I really enjoy meeting with folks there in your area. So just a little bit of background from my role in Franklin Covey. So for those of you that may be familiar with Franklin Covey, how many have seen a planner before, Franklin Covey planner? Well, have you seen the Blockbuster, documentary, The Last Blockbuster Store? I think there was one in Oregon or something like that. Anyways, there's one Franklin Covey planner store. It's at the Franklin Covey headquarters. There used to be one in every mall in the country, pretty much. If you recall, I remember going to college and I had my little Franklin Covey planner. So that may be some of your experience. You might have parents or might have had that in the past. So the advent of technology kind of did away with Franklin Covey planners. Still there. Some people still use them. But it is now a separate business. Licensed to that business to use the name and so forth. Franklin Covey now is a consulting leadership organization, and we're comprised of generally 3 different organizations. We have the education practices, which have been around a long time, works with some of you might be familiar with that. A Leader in Me is the primary focus on that. We do a little bit of everything within the, from 4 disciplines of execution to 7 habits, and we're really breaking that down to the education practice from primary to secondary and higher education. And then there's the traditional or the enterprise division, which really covers a lot of our, if you go on the Franklin Covey website, there's a really good explanation of what we do. When we break down the categories of what we focus on developing individual habits of effectiveness. We also help, with leadership development and teams, and also inclusiveness, diversity. And then my area is in the execution practice, which is focused on developing a system or helping you implement a system to be effective in implementing strategy. And that's the business outcomes practice, which I'm involved in. The other aspect that I do within my role is support the public sector. So that comprises of, federal, state, local, and governments, tribal governments, and then also some nonprofits and public-private partnerships as well, as some of you might be familiar with. So that kind of gives my breadth of experience. I've had a lot of experience in the public sector, served in the military and also government, and really happy to support my public service colleagues. I know some of you are in here as well, and do a lot of work with our public service colleagues. So thank you for doing that as well. With that being said, what I'd like to, I'm going to start my presentation here, and then bear with me while I get this set up. Okay. So you should be seeing here the presentation. Now, real quick, and if you don't mind me asking, how many of you have been exposed to the 4 disciplines of execution, either read the book or done any other training with Franklin Covey regarding 4 disciplines of execution? And if you want, go ahead and note that in the chat if you have, so I can get an idea. Well, I'm not seeing anybody jump in there, but it sounds like this might be new to everyone. So I have a couple of videos to show during the presentation, so look forward to that. Now, Franklin Covey has developed the system to achieve strategic results. And it's been about a 20-year process. And so this is the latest iteration. And what I wanted to go here. So we work this in organizations by starting with senior leadership, but really the magic happens at the frontline teams. And so when we work with helping leaders execute the system, we're trying to help them turn sporadic performance into results. And so building predictable results. So great execution starts with defining where you need more consistent and predictable results in your business or organization. We are going to give you some time to think about that question. So when you're looking to execute strategy in your organization, where do you think the breakdown is? Where do you think you need the most help in achieving those results? And so when you think about that question, we're going to get to a point in the presentation today where we discuss that in more detail. So when you're looking at 4 disciplines of execution, I want you to think about in 3 questions. The first question is going to be, is the system a good fit for your organization? You know, what are you really aiming at? And what would the implementation look like as a system in your organization? So we start with the strategy. Now I'm going to tell you how the strategy aligns within your mission, vision, and values of the organization, and then where strategy breaks down. So there's the first area, the category that strategy breaks down is the stroke of the pen. So something that can be done with the decision being made. These take time, money, and courage. So these are important. As a leader, you have authority to make these decisions, and they're pretty straightforward to do. So the next aspect of strategy is going to be the whirlwind, and this is your day job. So we use the word whirlwind. So if any of you have read the book or know a little bit more about 4 disciplines of execution, this is a common term that we use. And this is the time and energy needed to maintain the organization. So these are all the goals that are financial, operational, and internal within your organization. You can see a couple of these here. Product revenue, customer service, satisfaction, quality, and so on. So the next treatment to strategy is going to be a special focus on a breakthrough result. And here's what we mean by breakthrough result. So this is this is the area by which 4 disciplines of execution is applied. So think of in the whirlwind, you've got a lot of indicators. For example, some of you are familiar with KPIs, OKRs, day-to-day operations. So the day-to-day operations are, there's metrics and measurements there that you're going to be looking at. And so you might see something that is indicating to the red. And one of the ways to look at it is think of a dashboard on your car. So where you have like an oil light indicator or a check engine indicator. So that usually indicates something's wrong. So you might have an indicator in your business process or metrics that say, hey, this is something that's we need to look at. So it's gonna require special treatment that if you don't provide that focus, it's not gonna happen. And so that's what we refer to as a breakthrough result. Excuse me. So in the example of the car check engine example, if you kind of go without providing focus, taking it to the shop, eventually it's going to break down. So again, the breakthrough result is going to be something out of the whirlwind, your day job, that if you don't provide special treatment, it's not going to improve. And about 80%, 85% of the time, a breakthrough result is something from your whirlwind, but it could be something that's an outside influence like environmental change or something regulatory, or like say an innovation that you need to adapt very quickly. So accomplishing the breakthrough result is very tough because this treatment requires changes in human behavior to get a different and better result. Excuse me. It requires a large group of people to do something different, and changing human behavior is very, very hard. So think about, changing your own behavior. And many people set goals the new year, and some are successful, some aren't, but think of how hard it is to change your own behavior. And let alone how many of you as leaders in your organization, and particularly in human resources, you're tasked to really focus on behavior change in an organization and at scale. So how hard is that? So the breakthrough result and the graph that you're seeing here is going to be focused on those behaviors and identifying what they are and what needs to change. We have so good organizations. We've done some studies. One of those, and I'm going to introduce the performance curve, and some of you might be familiar with what that is. We've done some studies, and one of the people that we've worked with and read is Jim Collins, and he's the author of a book called Good to Great, and or Great by Choice. In the book, he focused his research on organizations that were like 10 times better than their competitors. And he found in their research studies, the signature of mediocrity is not an unwillingness to change, it's the signature of mediocrity. The signature of mediocrity is chronic inconsistency. So we have this term we call moving righter and tighter in the organization. So what we're trying to do is, you see in the performance curve, you're going to have most everybody in the middle, and you're going to have these great performers over to the right. And what we're trying to do is get everybody else to model those behaviors to be successful and move that breakthrough result. So here's an example of areas that we have worked in across the board in sales, productivity, guest customer satisfaction, cost savings. I mentioned my work with the public sector. And just to give you a couple examples of some of the work that we've done. So working with, I would say the FBI is one big project that we have right now. And that, think of all the issues with gun violence and everything across the country. So some of the work that we're doing is impacting their ability to help prevent that. So think of big challenges and problems. And what I mentioned to you earlier about the day job, and identifying something in the day job and your business processes and those metrics that you really need to move. It could be something as large as, an important initiative like public safety, or In one case, we have one of our clients is LA County, and what they tried to do is they haven't been able to move this metric in decades, and it's permanency. If you're familiar with Department of Child and Family Services, they for years and years they've been struggling to increase permanency, which is placing a child in a home in a permanent situation, either adopted or back in their home. And anytime you move a child out of the home, it's a decision to do harm, right? So getting them back into a permanent situation is what they call permanency. And so that was a big problem. And there was even a Netflix documentary that really showcased an issue that happened with a child that died under their care. And so a lot of political pressures, a lot of problems, but what that organization was able to do is rally everybody. And this is another principle I want you guys to be familiar with when we get to this point, is engagement, and leveraging a system within your organization that's simple and clear to drive engagement and goes after a result that you absolutely have to achieve. In some cases, it's life changing goals. And that is one example I wanted to share with you all. So here's a question I want to ask. And again, because we have a large group here, I'm just going to be hypothetical, but just think of, and if you want to put this in your chat, how much money do you think organizations spend on setting and creating new strategies? Just give a number. If you want to put it in the chat, I'll give you a second to think about it. So you might assume that's a large number. So $30+ billion globally is how much organizations spend on setting and creating strategies. Here's another question for you. So what % of initiatives do we start that don't deliver results? So that's another interesting question. Again, back to the whole starting the new year with New Year's resolutions, how many have started and how many are actually finished? Same thing here. So the answer to that question is 80+%. So, and that might be a little bit conservative. So there's the point here is most strategies and initiatives that are started are not finished. So another quick question on that is, why do you think that breakdown happens? So there's Franklin Covey has done a lot of research. I mentioned to you that sort of this business outcomes practice, the genesis of it was about 20 years ago. And there was a lot of research. This was an issue we're seeing in the industry. So they did some studies on that. And they found initially 12 different areas. But then after a while, kept really focusing in on it and found generally one big reason for strategies not completing. And so the answer to that question is the whirlwind. So when I discussed the whirlwind, the three categories of strategy, stroke of the pen are things that you can, as a leader, you have authority. The whirlwind is your day job. It's all your business processes. That is the all-consuming aspect of your business, right? Or what you do. And that's the urgent. So really, it's the colliding of the urgent, which is the whirlwind, and the important, which is your breakthrough result, what you're trying to go after. And the whirlwind is what's the most impactful of you preventing you achieving your strategic goals. So achieving a breakthrough result that requires a change in human behavior, we have to think about it differently. So again, back to the point I was making earlier about human behavior, it's hard to change our own, but it's even harder to change human behavior in an organization and at scale. And so the breakthrough results is focused in on that problem specifically. And here we'll show you in just a sec how that happens. So in order for you to change that behavior, you have to have clarity and define what that breakthrough result is to be, what everybody needs to rally behind. And you need to find how you need to narrow down the strategic focus, create clarity and commitment around your breakthrough result. And so that defines your performance curve. This is the performance. This is what you want people. This is what people are currently doing. And then you need to define what you need to do to move that righter and tighter. So that's the second aspect. The third is we need to measure it. So you have to have a metric of measuring. And we like to call it tracking the pace of progress in real time. And for those of you that work in HR, this is a big challenge, right? You do assessments and other things to really try to measure impact of training or get an idea of quality of life or satisfaction within an organization. You have different metrics that you're using. So this is really important to measure. You can't move what you can't measure. And again, James Clear says this: goals can provide direction, even push you forward in the short term, but eventually all well-designed systems will always win. Having a system is what matters. Committing to the process is what makes the difference. So the main point I wanted to make here is 4 disciplines of execution is about a system to achieve a breakthrough result by engaging people around that strategic goal in changing behavior to accomplish that. And so I'm going to show you a video, and this is from the author of the book and our global practice leader. So this will kind of frame it from a leader of leaders perspective. There's 2 ways to look at 4 disciplines of execution. First, we talked about the strategy, breaking it down from what's the stroke of the pen, what's your day job, the whirlwind, and what is the breakthrough result that you're driving to. And the leader, we start that way because the leader of leaders have to provide clarity around what that breakthrough result is. And then there's another video I'll show in a little bit that breaks it down to the frontline teams. So with that being said, I'll play the video.
If you are a leader of leaders, consider this: 80% of strategic initiatives fail even though we spend over $30 billion a year on strategic plans. Why is execution so much more difficult than strategy? Because the enormous amount of time required to maintain any operation, the day job, what we call the whirlwind, dominates the energy you need to execute on new strategic objectives. I mean, if people just understood how important the strategy is, they'd do it, right? Your strategic objectives might be critically important, but in the moment, they will rarely feel as urgent as the whirlwind. The trick with execution is not executing a strategic plan. It's the ability to execute that plan in the middle of a 100-mile-an-hour whirlwind. This becomes especially challenging when key elements of your plan require large groups of people to change their behavior to achieve a different result. Great execution starts by reducing complexity. From decades of research, we know that strategy breaks into 3 basic execution categories. First is stroke of the pen. These elements of your plan require money or leadership authority. They require your signing authority to execute. Need a new hire, software upgrade, policy change. These moves will happen because you said so. Second is the whirlwind or the day job. Managing the whirlwind is a vital part of your leadership role. It includes every metric you must meet: financial, operational, people, and customer, to keep your doors open. Now, you will inevitably have critical aspects of your plan that can't be achieved through stroke of the pen, nor will they be accomplished as part of the whirlwind. This brings us to the third category, breakthrough results. It is reserved for those elements of your strategy that require disproportionate energy to achieve. For example, reduce inventory shrink by 15 million, increase customer satisfaction by 12%, reduce plant shutdowns by 20%. A breakthrough result is challenging because it requires large groups of people across multiple levels of an organization to do things differently, which is precisely why they need disproportionate energy and special attention to achieve. We know how difficult it is to change our own behavior. The challenge of changing behavior at scale can be brutal. Here's the bad news. The whirlwind and the breakthrough results, they don't get along. They're both necessary, but they compete for time, energy, and attention, and unfortunately, the whirlwind usually suffocates the energy required to produce the breakthrough. Here's the good news. This is where the 4 disciplines of execution system lives. The principles behind the disciplines allow you to do your hardest job, to execute a critical breakthrough result in the face of competing distractions. Over 20 years in the making, the 4DX system delivers simplicity and transparency, the 2 best friends of execution. James Clear says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. Just as an aircraft relies on the principles of weight, lift, drag, and thrust for liftoff, the 4DX system relies on 4 principles to achieve a breakthrough result: focus, leverage, engagement, and accountability. It starts with Franklin Covey experts asking key executives to define a breakthrough result, which creates strategic focus. This is not your typical strategic planning. Rather, it's a customized process that yields key targets with starting lines, finish lines, and deadlines. Next, 4DX activates the front line to leverage everyone's collective energy toward the breakthrough result. In over 4,000 implementations with our clients, we've applied this proven process that combines top-down strategic direction with bottom-up lead measures designed by the frontline teams. Everyone gets a voice in achieving a breakthrough result. Next, it creates organizational transparency with a scalable platform that engages everyone in a winnable game. Team members hold weekly accountability sessions, make commitments, update their scoreboards, and see they're winning. Leaders get a simple, transparent way to clear the path for teams to make progress on the breakthrough result. Finally, the system tracks execution progress. Our execution performance score, or XPS, measures the amount of energy you're expending on your breakthrough result. As teams engage with their scoreboards, the XPS tracks progress pace in real time, showing which teams are on track, off track, or just inconsistent. When implemented fully, the 4 disciplines of execution system gives leaders and frontline teams the capacity to rise to and even exceed their most important breakthrough results.
Okay, so that's Chris McChesney. So he was one of the original creators and still around, and our global practice leader of the 4 disciplines of execution system. And the 4 things that the principles that he mentioned, these are, if any of you are sort of believers of first principles, think of it that way. You know, what is the basic principle that we're trying to leverage to accomplish these goals? And Franklin Covey did not invent these. We're not the creators of these, but these are just the principles that we're focused on to set up this 4 disciplines of execution system: focus, leverage, engagement, and accountability. So what the other thing I want to focus in on is, as a leader of leaders, thinking from a strategic perspective, how you can implement a system that engages your frontline teams, that activates the potential or the focus of your frontline teams. And the studies that we've done have also showed that there's a large disconnect. What I do as a client partner when I'm talking to clients and initially qualifying their interest for the 4 disciplines of execution, I will get them in touch with one of our regional practice leaders. And we walk through a process to get them ready to take the next step, to start thinking strategically, clarity around the breakthrough result and what they need to do to activate their frontline teams. I'll show you an example of that. We call it an execution challenge worksheet in just a sec. But what's really important is we have to walk the leaders through these steps, through these principles, because the real breakdown happens from at the frontline team level. You're all experts, and from your organizations and your experiences where most of the disengagement happens. Think of how many people at the front lines are really connecting with what the mission, vision, and strategy of the organization. Can they even name one sentence or one word, or repeat one word or one sentence of the organizational strategy? Or in that strategy, what is the priority or the goal that you're going after? So the first step, and like I said, my role as a client partner, as clients express interest in the 4 disciplines of execution, need help, is to connect them with one of our senior consultants in the 4 disciplines of execution, our practice leader, and the practice leader will walk you through something we call the execution challenge worksheet. And this is something that I'm going to leave with you as a takeaway from this event. So I'm just going to go through this really quick, because this is typically something that the practice leader will consult with you and guide you through the process. But this is what the execution challenge worksheet looks like. And again, I'll leave a digital version that you guys can take away with, and the links to the videos that I'm showing you today that you can share and discuss with your teams. But I'm going to take you through a couple of these and what this really means. But there's some questions here that will help you ask and identify as a leader and answer. So I'm going to go to, pardon me for a sec here. So these are the areas of the worksheet that are important. So you'll see the question here. We're trying to help organizations, leaders define clarity what the goal is. And then we're trying to address who is the target employee audience within your organization that you need to focus in on and to engage and activate. What is the commitments that we need to go after and engage them on? And then we need to measure and have accountability. Now, accountability is one thing I want to emphasize. It's more engagement than accountability. Accountability is the outcome of the engagement, but what we're trying to do is implement a system that the frontline employees are engaged, they're connected with the goal, and they're making the weekly commitments necessary to achieve that goal. And they're the ones that are coming up with that. And and we'll go through the 4 disciplines here in a sec. But as we go through this next video, so I'm going to leave it up to the video to introduce the system, the 4 disciplines. And so I'll.
How did that last critical goal or initiative fail? Did it crash quickly? or suffocate slowly? We suspect it's suffocated from the whirlwind, the day job, the day-to-day urgencies needed to just keep the organization running. The whirlwind can easily devour the time and energy your team needs to execute on its most important objective. The 4 disciplines of execution system for frontline teams can change all that. Tested and vetted over 2 decades, the 4DX system is based on 4 principles: focus, leverage, engagement, and accountability to provide frontline teams with a winnable game. It asks each team to put disproportionate energy and focus on one wildly important goal, which enables the organization to achieve its breakthrough result in the middle of a 100-mile-an-hour whirlwind. Discipline 1 is focus on the wildly important. Compared to other goals, a wildly important goal, or WIG, has an exceptionally high impact on a breakthrough result. The WIG won't happen in the whirlwind, the normal course of operation, because the activities needed to achieve the WIG rarely feel as urgent as the day job unless they get sharp focus and attention. If a team has 1 WIG in addition to the whirlwind, they're likely to achieve it and even exceed it. But if they have more than 1, they aren't likely to achieve any WIGs outside the whirlwind. Not because they're lazy, because they're busy. The WIG you choose must drive the organization's breakthrough result. It must have a clear starting line, finish line, and deadline expressed in the format from X to Y by when. Your success as a leader is based on 2 measures: lags and leads. A lag measures the success of a wildly important goal. A lead measures the behaviors that drive the lag. This takes us to discipline 2, act on the lead measures. Leads leverage the game because they're predictive of the lag and influenceable by the team. For example, to predict an increase in revenue, a lag, you could increase your number of sales calls, a lead. Sounds simple, right? But how many sales calls? To whom? How often? It's far easier to track a lag, the thing we ultimately want, but to succeed, you must manage to the lead, not fixate on the lag. For a lead to be influenceable, the team must be able to act on it. Since team members are closest to the work, they get to choose the actions that will drive the lag and ensure the WIG's success. To see the immediate impact of their actions, teams keep score in real time. This takes us to discipline 3, create a compelling scoreboard. Have you noticed that people play differently when they're keeping score? The most common scoreboards are full of statistics that only the coaches or leaders understand. Far less common is a compelling scoreboard built for players. If you want the team's full engagement, create a player's scoreboard, not a coach's scoreboard. The 4DX OS scoreboard is simple, highly visible, shows leads and lag measures, tells the team immediately if they're winning or losing. When teams see progress in the midst of the whirlwind, they know they're playing a winnable game. Disciplines 1, 2, and 3 are how you set up the game. Discipline 4, create a cadence of accountability, is how you play the game. It revolves around a team accountability meeting, 20 minutes or less, where each member answers one question. Outside of the whirlwind, what is the 1 or 2 commitments that I will make to drive the lead and lag measures? Teams don't discuss the whirlwind in the WIG session. They discuss the actions that will ultimately drive the organization's breakthrough result. Each member updates their own scoreboard, reports on last week's commitments, and makes commitments for next week. Commitments come from team members, not from the leader. We've found that when team members commit to their peers, not their boss, their commitments become promises and the disciplines become a team sport. When the team sees that their commitments are driving the score, they start to own the results. As a leader, this is when you know you have thrown the game on switch. Our clients love to tell us that 4DX says easy, but does hard. Each of the 4 disciplines are counterintuitive. They require team leaders to think and act differently than they normally do. First, Discipline 1 asks you to choose only one wildly important goal. It requires you to say no to good ideas. Second, it's natural to focus on lag measures. They're easier to track, and they represent what everyone ultimately wants. Discipline 2 requires you to reverse that thinking and manage to the lead, not fixate on the lag. Third, to track goals, leaders reach for complicated spreadsheets only they can understand. Discipline 3 requires you to create a simple scoreboard that shows the team, not just you, if they're winning or losing. It's about a scoreboard for players, not coaches. Finally, because many team leaders know what's needed to reach the goal, they're tempted to make the commitment for the team. Discipline 4 requires your team members to make their own commitments, play their own game. By applying the 4 disciplines of execution system with Franklin Covey, your team has a winnable game. It enables an organization to achieve its breakthrough result in the midst of a 100-mile-an-hour whirlwind.
Okay, I'm going to get ready to do a break here, and we'll kind of have a conversation, but I wanted to go back to this execution challenge worksheet. And so I just want to make it very clear, and we're going to get to a little bit of a discussion here in just a sec. But again, I'm not the consultant here. So what I do is think of me like as a client partner. I'm kind of your I coordinate and I set this up for you with with a consultant, with a practice leader, to kind of walk through this process of defining what the breakthrough result is and defining who in your organization needs to be involved in helping accomplish that. So again, what I'm going to leave with you as a takeaway is this execution challenge worksheet. And this is how this execution challenge worksheet works when the consultant is working with you in defining this and providing clarity. And these are the disciplines that are associated with the worksheet. The discipline 1 is focus on the wildly important, and we define that as the breakthrough result. Discipline 2 is acting on the lead measures. What are the behaviors? What are the lead measures that video just showed that are going to provide you the most predictive impact on the lag measure, which is a wildly important goal. And then of keeping a compelling scoreboard and a cadence of accountability, those are about engagement. So the first 1 to 3 principles here are setting up your strategy, your game, if you will. And discipline 4 is how you play the game and actually engaging your teams. So I'm going to show you real quick, sort of generally, as we're working through with organizations to, break this down. The lead measures are developed and defined at the frontline teams. That's why we call it activating the frontline teams. And the overall strategy, the lag measure, the wildly important goal, is going to be defined at the senior leadership level. And then where they're going to meet is at the lead measure. And as the frontline teams are engaged in that process, defining what that is and making commitments, you'll start seeing results. But there's a process in how we go about doing that. And I'm just going to show you one image real quick, and I'll show you kind of an example. So of another client that has done this. So when we take organizations through this process, and again, this is the consultant and the practice leader that's doing this, we're engaging at different steps and different levels within the organization to implement this as a system to engage and activate the frontline teams. So, so many of you are probably familiar with there's the Gaylord Hotel. I think it's in Nashville, Tennessee. That's one of the biggest hotels in the world. And so what they have done is how they've broken it down into their frontline teams is they've, this is the wrong one. I apologize. I'm going to conclude there with that. That's the wrong, this is a patient or hospital example that's not congruent with the example I was just showing you. So to kind of end there, and I'll get into the conversation to conclude, is I'm a practitioner of 4 disciplines of execution, and I have done it within my organization, and where I connect with it is where as a frontline team leader is really activating and engaging in the commitments I make every week to accomplish that wildly important goal. I'm going to kind of stop the presentation here, and I want to ask a few questions and then just get your feedback. So typically, this process, when we're introducing the 4 disciplines of execution to clients and walking them through, is a complimentary session with our practice leader. We walk you through the initial steps to define what the wildly important goal is. We walk you through the execution challenge worksheet. We help you determine that as a leadership team. The takeaway from there is going to be, what is some clarity around the breakthrough result? That's where we start. The real magic happens at the front lines. So when we look at developing lead measures within an organization, it's going to be with the frontline teams, and the frontline teams are engaged in that. If you have clarity with the WIG, the wildly important goal, and are ready to take that to the frontline teams, they're going to take that, define lead measures that are going to impact that goal, and then help you develop a structure with the frontline teams to implement that. And so when I mention this as a system, where we used to like train people, like you read the book gives you the principles, it has all the principles in there, you can take that. But and we used to provide training for that, and this is generally what we do in the front end, but it's very light on the training side, and it's more providing the tools and the resources and the coaching to get you through the process. And what we found is the real work is done with the frontline teams. Once you define clarity with the wildly important goal, we were with an organization last week or the other week at Maricopa County. So I had the practice leader down there working with Maricopa County's assessor's office, and they have some important goals that they need to achieve this next year. And sitting back, watching that process happen, it took a full day, and then plus after that, to get the leaders, all the leaders, to agree on what is that breakthrough result. So it is a lot of work to get there. Once you do, that really sets you up to take it to the frontline teams, because where they struggle is they struggle with connecting with what that mission, vision, and goal is. And so once you have that clarity, and that's what the execution challenge worksheet is that I just referred to earlier, then you're able to take that to your frontline teams. You're able to activate and enable them to define what the lead measures are. And the lead measures, as described, are going to be those actions and those behaviors that are most predictive to accomplishing that wildly important goal. And with that being said, do you have any questions about what I covered today? Again, this is meant to be very high level. The session that I referred to with the practice leader is typically meant to be about a 90-minute session with you, your teams. When we do it virtually, it's complimentary, and we walk you through the process of defining what that breakthrough result is initially. So I'm here for any questions if you got any.
So,
Go ahead.
so I know we have a melting pot of people and we love it. We have some CEOs, some senior management, as well as some middle managers, and coordinators, and just a melting pot of people on the phone. One of the things I just wanted to highlight is the worksheet that Rob was referencing. It will be sent to Justin and myself, and we will send that out to you all. That way you all will have it, and you can kind of take a look at it with your teams and in your respected positions, as well as if this is something that you're like, hey, I kind of want to take a deep dive. We've had conversations with Rob and some other members of the team, and so that's something that we can definitely schedule so that you can have that information. I'm looking in the chat, and there's a lot of feedback in the chat, which is people saying great presentation, that sort of thing. We do have a question by John, my good friend over at the Alzheimer's Project, and he's asking, what does the ongoing process look like? Are there yearly check-ins, and how does this look like with turnover?
That's a good question, and I'm afraid I wasn't able to get to that point today. Again, this is meant to be a process, a 90-minute process that we work through with you. I'm going to share with you that an answer to that question. So
and while Rob is getting that ready, someone asked about a deeper dive. Stay tuned, because this is an ongoing partnership that we're continuing to build out, and so you'll definitely hear more about some of the Covey systems. So stay tuned.
So you're probably, let me go wrong sharing here, but anyways, pardon the share. I didn't share the right slide. Here it is. So the process is, remember the slide I was sharing with you earlier? We take organizations through what's called a define, move, and measure. So the front end of it is generally what we start off with, the execution challenge worksheet. We have the practice leader walk the executive team through that process of defining what the breakthrough result is, to begin the process of breaking that down into the organization, or as it cascades down to the frontline teams. So these are the engagements. Now, it can be modified a little bit depending on the size of your organization and how comprehensive it is. Like, we have a large Navy client that has, in Florida, in fact, the Fleet Readiness Center Southeast, that takes the aircraft off to get them off that needs to be repaired and get ready to go back into the fleet. They have these production lines, a very comprehensive, large organization. And so it depends on the size. So the first step is to work with the executive team to define the lead measure, which is going to be, or the lag measure, which is your breakthrough result. And then the next steps are breaking that down into your mid-level management, to your frontline teams, walking them through the process to define sub-WIGs and also lead measures at the frontline teams, and then getting the teams ready to launch it. And then the launch process usually takes about 4 to 6 months. And so as you're running this with your team, there'll be some check-ins to see how you're doing. And then at the very end is going to be a summit. Think of it like a capstone. So at the end of about a 6-month process to get a result, that's generally how much time it takes. It could take up to a year, but you're trying to pick a metric or a measurement out of your business process, your whirlwind, to provide some focus to accomplish. And that usually takes about 6 months to a year. And then at the end, you're going to celebrate the results and then assess where you want to go next with it. The other thing I wanted to show you in the process, particularly as a leader and executive, you're going to have access to a scoreboard. And one of those things is determining where this is an executive scoreboard. You can see the performance curve. You can see these little boxes are indicating how well people are doing, how well teams are doing, in fact, and then where you need some help. And our scoreboard, I didn't get a chance to go into that. That's really, we call it the execution performance score. What I'll do is I'll include a white paper that goes into more detail. That's also a takeaway. But we break this down into these measures. So the execution performance score is one component is based on the WIG, how well you're doing against the breakthrough result, or WIG, how well you're doing against the lead measures, if your teams are making commitments and they're holding their weekly sessions every week. Based on that, we have an indication of how well you're doing. And that's generally how we can determine real time. And they refer to a little scoreboard, and it's also available here. Individuals and leaders can see how they're doing. They can update their weekly commitments, what they're doing every week, and it's real-time measurement and progress towards your goal. Here's another example of what that looks like. So again, the scoreboard is focused on the process. Really is a big aspect of that is the scoreboard, and focusing on those principles we just discussed. Any questions on that? Again, it starts with a executive team engagement. The practice leader walks you through the process of defining what the breakthrough result is, and then getting you ready to take that to your next level teams.
Awesome. John is asking, and this is the last question, and then we will schedule some time to connect you and Rob, John. But he's asking, is there an ideal size organization for this?
No, I do have a client that is this very small, 8 people. And I have a large client that's several hundred people. So there's no ideal size. What's interesting is you can take a small team and run them through the process to achieve a result, develop some of that habit and that muscle memory, if you will, and then take that into elsewhere in the organization and scale it. So the nice thing about this is this system, this framework of execution scales very well, small to large.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we appreciate you all joining us. You know, we are very anal about ensuring that we're respectful of your time, and saw lots of great questions in the chat. Justin will make note of those. We'll make sure we get you the handout, and I will let Justin officially close us out.
Alrighty, all. I have one quick announcement for us, and I'm going to share my screen real quick so you all can see it. Or maybe not. Let's see. Boom. Can you all see my screen with the workshop flyer?
Yes.
Perfect. So happening next week, next Thursday, so today, 7 days from now, will be our in-person event planning workshop titled Event Planning 101. And we all know that executing a great event is a huge part of driving clients and supporters to your organization. So this workshop specifically discusses great ways to plan an event from start to finish. We'll be joined by Brittany Jones of Touched by Rose Events and Terrence L. Barber of Working Class Wednesdays. Again, this workshop is in person. It will be at the UPHS offices in our conference room within Tim Gamble Place within the Suite 200. Which is on that upstairs level. So please come join us for that. Make sure you register via Wild Apricot to join us for this workshop. But this is the only announcement that I have for you all today. I hope you all have a wonderful day and rest of your week. And please be safe in the weather as it is ever changing so much. But please have a great rest of your day and week. And we will see you next week at our offices for this wonderful workshop.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Rob. See y'all.
Thank you. I'll send the information to you, Justin, and to get out to everybody.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.